Ladies and gentlemen, Keefe D had mentioned a lot of names. Foxy Brown in the car with Zip in Vegas. But there was another name that he had mentioned. I really didn't pay too much attention to it, and then I did some research. Coy Edwards. Ladies and gentlemen, it's one thing to think something, but it's another thing to open your mouth and relieve all doubt. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get into some of the straight game.
Life is like cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. It's your boy Delray Richardson, platinum artist, platinum songwriter, Straight Game TV. I thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time. Do me a favor. Hit the thumbs up button. Also, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And like I always say, if you want to be one of the first people notified when I drop some of this straight game, please do me a favor and click on what appears to be that little bell notification right below this video. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to show you something first before I get into this paperwork, right? Keefe D was on the Art of Dialogue. And he had asked him a question. But before he asked him the question, before the Art of Dialogue asked him the question, Keefe D basically volunteered information as to when the feds came to him when he was locked up. He talked about a psychology board and how they basically knew everything, where they were sitting in the car and all of these things, ladies and gentlemen. Prior to him getting the proffer agreement, and basically they were letting him know that they basically knew everything. So if he lied to them in the process, right, that the deal was off the table. Check this out.
And another thing, the FBI was coming up there fucking every month, dude. They knew what was up, all that shit. You know what I'm saying? If you a gangster and they come to talk to you, they use this psychology game. They put this board up on you, you know what I'm saying? That'll fuck your mind up. You know what I'm saying? Every time they was come up into that prison, they had that board up there. You know what I'm saying? And, if you pay attention to that board, that shit'll have you fucked up. You know what I'm saying? It's a psychology board. You know what I'm saying? People don't know about it. But they got a board up there where they had the snitches and, you know what I'm saying? They had us where we was in the car, you know what I'm saying? I was like, oh, fuck. So, you know what I'm saying? They was up on it, dude. They knew the shit. They knew what I was going to say before I even said it. They knew what happened. They knew what happened already, dude. They said, that's why they say if you lie, the shit is off the table. We already know what happened. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's wild, man. So they already knew where everybody was sitting at in the white Cadillac.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was in prison and they came up there in 99, they had the little where we sitting at in the car and all that shit. It's a psychology board. If you pay attention to that shit'll fuck your mind up. So I'm just letting you know, these gangster motherfuckers, don't look at that fucking board. Don't pay attention to it. You know what I'm saying? It was a slow burn, dude. Slow burn. You feel me? Yeah, and they know I was hard, dude.
Now, so that you understand, because a lot of people have come up with all of these reasons why they believe Keefe D is lying and all of these other things. You have to understand, Keefe D basically said that they came to the jail and they had a psychology board about with the informants on it. You know, he said the feds knew where everybody was sitting in the car and all of these things, ladies and gentlemen. Do you think somebody who's lying about something could actually say that about something on a video, in a video interview with somebody and admit to that? And basically, this is when his deal or the proffer deal that he was about to do, this is when it came into effect. I just want you to take that for a minute. Art of Dialogue didn't ask him that question per se. He went into the volunteering of what had happened, that he was in jail, that they would come and the psychology board, even so much so warning other would-be gangsters from that perspective. You know, hey, man, watch out what you're doing because they got the psychology board when they catch up with you, X, Y, and Z. But more importantly than that, I did some research and I want to share something with you because it's very important. Now, Keefe D had mentioned a guy by the name of Corey Edwards. And it sparked me. I was like, you know, in the Greenblatt situation as well as being in Vegas, right? Listen, the Greenblatt situation is a situation where Keefe D alleged that him and Sean P. Diddy Combs, amongst other people who were in the room, talked about the alleged hit on Tupac and Shakur, right? But I overlooked something about information before, but I came across this other piece of, or should I say this other document, right? And I want to share it with you. Check this out. This document right here. Well, let's deal with this part first. The Greenblatts, because it's very important. So, Detective Keefe, tell us what happened that made it something other than just him frustrated and boasting. He said, basically quoting, said, man, I'll give you guys anything. What made it specific? Hey, hey, I'm serious. I want you guys to kill these guys. And Keefe D responds to Greg Kading when he told me at Greenblatts. So now this is the place. You know, the who, what, when, and where, right? This is the place. He told me when he told me at Greenblatts. Then Greg Kading says, well, how did that go? What was the conversation? And then comes in, ladies and gentlemen, remember, Keefe D is in the feds doing time. Then here comes the federal agent who's there, right? And he said, and who is he? And Keefe D says, Puff. Listen. Detective Kading says, how did the conversation go? We really need specific details regarding that. Keefe D said, we wanted $1 million, right? This is consistent with what Suge said that Keefe D told him when they were at the Staples Center. So I just need you to understand that. But that's not the crux of what I'm getting at. You're gonna see it in a minute. Detective Kading, he said, all right. So you meet him at Greenblatts for lunch or dinner or what? Right? Keefe D, this was dinner in the evening. So when he says that and asks that for lunch, for dinner, for what? That lets me know that Greg Kading don't really know what it is that, you know, what was it? Lunch, dinner, breakfast, what? You know what I mean? Keefe D said this was dinner in the evening, right? And then this question right here, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to check this out. Detective Kading, who else was there? And Keefe D says, all of us, Corey, everybody, all our crew. Now, I want you to pay attention to that because I'm going to read something else to you. But, ladies and gentlemen, Corey Edwards didn't have to put himself at Greenblatts. Nobody knew Corey Edwards was at Greenblatts or Corey or whoever, yeah, you know, what he's saying, right? Keefe D put him there. Now, as to the legitimacy or actually did the Greenblatts meeting happen, you know, once again, we're listening to what Keefe D is saying and what he said and what he told Greg Kading, what he testified to when he got his proffer agreement. This is the debriefing, right? In regards to what the video you just watched and him saying that they knew everything. So now, once he saw the psychology board and all of those other things, now here comes the debriefing where they're asking him everything. But the key is this. He said, Corey and all our crew. I want you to pay attention to that because it's very important. I don't know if Corey Edwards is involved in this case or not. I believe Corey Edwards was on the one of those TV shows that they had did in regards to Benjamin Crump. I believe he was on one of those shows. But more importantly than that, I need you to understand this. Keefe D placed Corey at the at Greenblatts, right? So hypothetically, or factually. If Coy Edwards was to be somebody who called to testify, whatever, and not for the truth of the matter as to what was said between Sean P. Diddy Combs and Keefe D, but as to the truth of the matter, did this meeting occur, right? Keefe D placed Coy Edwards there, like I said, if that was something that they were going after. And this is why, once again, ladies and gentlemen, if you can't do the time, don't do the crime, right? There is no excuse for snitching. You did what you did because you did it, and when you got caught, you felt like, you know what, I needed a way out, and so I turned state's evidence. I became a government informant. It is what it is. It doesn't, none of that, because when somebody's playing the game at a high level, the last thing that they want somebody to do to them is to snitch on them. Somebody told on them, it's a whole nother thing versus when they get caught and they tell on somebody and they got 15,000 excuses as to why they told. It's unacceptable. Point blank, period. They say you can bend the law, but don't break it. And like I said, everybody, the benefits, or should I say the worth, or should I would say the benefits of, selling drugs and doing all of those things. When you break it all down to the years you might have had good in the game to when they come to get you and the years that they're about to give you for what they say you did, if you do it mathematically and you break it down, it really, truly, honestly wasn't worth it. But I'll say this. So just like Keefe D implicated Foxy Brown being in the car with Zip in Vegas when he alleged that that's where he got the 40 caliber Glock from, right? We didn't know this. We didn't know that Coy was at Greenblatts. So Pete, now check this out. Now you got to understand, like I said, for not the truth of what was being allegedly said between Sean P. Diddy Combs and Keefe D as to the, setting up the hit or on Tupac and Suge, but just the truth of the matter as to the meeting and the people who were there, right? So this meeting on this day, blah, 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 because they look at the statement and they say the statement and Keefe D said you were there, and just, testimony, somebody coming to testify. Like I said, once again, I don't know if that's going to happen, but because of Keefe D's testimony to the feds and to Greg Kading, that is a possibility. And Keefe D has no one to blame but himself because he implicated Coy being there. Right? Listen. So now I'm going to go to the statement. I want you to understand this. Check this out. And as the truthfulness of whether Keefe D was in Vegas or not. Check this out. I want you to pay attention. Watch this. So this right here is a statement. This is actually from Murder Rap, right? But this is a statement from Coy Edwards taken back in 2006, if you will, by Greg Kading and another police officer, I think by the name of Brennan. And so check this out. So Coy Edwards, then they asked him, he had waived his rights. It's other people's name on here. I don't really want to read their name. Like I said, once again, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I said, if they had anything to do with anything, like I said, I believe in, people's anonymity as far as that's concerned and other than dealing with this here, right? So Coy Edwards basically said that he was in Las Vegas when Tupac and Suge Knight was shot. Said that he was there for the Tyson fight and he was in a bar with friends from New York, right? Don't know if that was Zip. Don't know who that was in regards to being friends from New York after the fight. Listen, he said he was in there with friends from New York after the fight, right? Orlando Anderson, Dwayne Keefe Davis, DeAndre Smith, Kevin Davis, and Terrence Brown came into the bar, right? Now, Coy Edwards is placing everybody at the scene. This is a 06 statement. This is 2006, right? He said, and all of these players came into the bar. Anderson told him that he had been jumped by Suge Knight, Tupac Shakur, and the mob, right? They were all mad and talking about getting back at the persons who jumped Anderson, right? After a little while, they all left the bar together and Edwards stayed at the bar. Edwards did not offer any further information regarding this incident. Edwards said that Dwayne Keefe Davis and the Southside Crip members met Biggie Smalls through Zip. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to understand, for whatever reason, people do the things that they do. And like I said, I don't know for what reason, like I said, Corey Edwards was talking to Greg Cady and them. I think he had been picked up on a felony warrant or something like that, federal warrant, if you will. And they had asked him, read him his Miranda rights, and he basically waived his rights and agreed to talk to Greg Cady and them. That's an actual document, an actual legal document from that situation. And so, like I said, when you deal with this, so Corey Edwards' statement to Greg Cady, right? And remember the court case when Keefe D was in court, and it was a box, like I said, that little brown box that was given to the prosecutors in Las Vegas. This was in that brown box. I guarantee you. I guarantee you this was in the brown box. Yeah. Right? So when Keefe D said, well, I wasn't, and this is why I think Keefe D was so mad. He was like, when he said I wasn't in Vegas, they can't put me in Vegas, they can't whatever. This is an official document during the investigation into the murder of Tupac Shakur, in and where Corey Edwards admits to being in Vegas, admits to the situation involving who was there and so on and so forth, right? Not saying who did it, who was involved in from that perspective, but what had happened after the fight, after Orlando was jumped in the whole 9 yards. So that right there places Keefe D in Vegas. Like I said, people are running around trying to, they were saying, well, this, that. This is not something that you or I or anybody else want to be what it is. This is actually what it is. This is actions of people who have done things. And so the information is available, right? But Keefe D spoke on Greenblatts and put Corey Edwards there. Corey Edwards talked to Greg Cady and Brennan, right? After being picked up on a federal warrant, waived his rights, and basically gave a statement about Vegas. And he places Keefe D, among others, in Vegas. Now, you heard in the beginning of the tape with the interview with Keefe D talking again with the Art of Dialogue. And you heard what he said. When they came to see him, they knew where he was at, who was in the car, where they sat in the car. They basically knew everything that happened. Now, how they knew that, I don't know, right? And so when you think about the big picture, and when he finally did his proffer deal, in which ultimately Keefe D should have just kept his mouth shut, right? Everything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? And so, like I said, once again, nobody doing any kind of criminal street stuff, illegal stuff wants to be snitched on. Point blank, period. Right? But like I said, if you can't want not to be snitched on, but then when you get caught, snitch and then come up with a justification as to why you told. Right? Because that means that everything that you ever stood for was a lie. And it was believed to be the truth while you were active and doing what you were doing. But then once you got caught, it's like, you know what? I throw up my hands. You know what? I could tell you who got it. I could tell you where I got it from. I don't understand it. I never will. I never will. And so, like I said, once again, my best advice, keep your mouth shut. Keep people out your business. Don't let them know what you're doing. If you are into any kind of felonious activity, more importantly, like I said, if you can't do the crime, don't do the time. There is no reason at all, if one is in the criminal world, that when the time comes for you to pay for the price for what you did, that you should tell on other people. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? There's no hard, fast rules to the street life. As we've seen, back in the day, it was a little bit different. You know what I mean? There were serious consequences for situations like that, and where people, and then depending on who it was, and how much they wanted to enforce, those rules, because they stood by them and they expected everybody else to stand by those same rules of loyalty from that perspective, and that's just the bigger picture of what this is. So this is very important, because when you look at it, and like I said, I didn't really know who Corey Edwards and nobody was. And when I did the research, it was like, oh, wow. I'm like, then I looked back at the statement that he made to Keefe D made the great, and I'm like, Corey, he said, Corey, everybody. I'm like, he putting somebody in a place where I don't know if that person, Corey, ever said he was there, but Keefe D put him there. Like he put Foxy Brown in the car with Zip. Right? You know what I mean? I don't think Foxy Brown wanted to be mentioned in anything like that, especially in a situation that involved being in the vicinity, or people who may have or may not have, right, allegedly participated or facilitated something in the involvement of the assassination of Tupac Shakur, ladies and gentlemen. So like I said, once again, very important. More importantly, I appreciate your time. Do me a favor, comment down below and tell me what you think about this. Because like I said, I had to do the research and I was like, oh, wow. But the shocking part for me was the mentioning of Corey being at Greenblatts, and then the statement that Corey gave to Greg Kading. But more importantly, the video of Keefe D basically stating how and where they came about to get him to, do the deal or proffer deal or whatever, basically saying they knew everything. Ladies and gentlemen, your boy Delray, straight gang.
Life is like cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.